Okay, I just want to confirm that everybody can see my slideshow. Is that correct?
Yes, they are not too big though.
Hmm, I do not know how to fix that. Let me try something else here. Um, yeah, I don't know how to make that bigger.
Let's try it again. That's fine.
Well, good morning. As Dominica said, my name is Bjorn Walter. I'm a CTE specialist with the Department of Education and Early Development in Juneau. I am the point person for CTSOs in Alaska. And one of the things that we always want to do with our presentations from the Department of Ed is reiterate what our mission, vision, and purpose is. And you may have heard this before, but our mission is to provide an excellent education for every student every day. And DEED's role in that really is to provide information, resources, and leadership to districts and other entities in helping to achieve that. You may be familiar with the strategic priorities from Alaska's Education Challenge, and there are 5 of them. I just want to point out that the second point of the Alaska Education Challenge priorities is to increase career technical and culturally relevant education. So the first point is getting students to read on grade level by grade 3, and with the READS Act that was enacted last year, or actually year before last, we're starting to make an inroad on that. So to me, logically, point 2 being career and technical education, that should be where we're putting our focus now, but that may or may not actually be the case, but it is there, and the state does recognize that career and technical education is important. This morning, I just want to briefly go over 3 things with you. Talk about what a CTSO is, and then highlight which CTSOs are active in Alaska right now, and then finally give you the contact information for CTSO statewide leaders, should you want to get in touch with them. So the first question really is, what is a CTSO? And a CTSO is an acronym that stands for Career and Technical Student Organization. CTSOs are a basic component of career and technical education that support and enhance related school-based work and work-based learning. They provide students with skills and knowledge to succeed in a global economy. They help students learn through contextual instruction, leadership, and personal development applied to real-world learning situations. And specifically, CTSOs are designed to help students develop critical skills like leadership, citizenship, technical skills, teamwork, and other sort of soft skills that are essential for being successful in a job environment. They improve students' civic awareness and opportunities to develop social competencies and good attitudes towards working and living and work-life balance. They are an integral part of the classroom curriculum in career and technical education. They build on employability and career skills. And so one of the key things that they do is that they provide hands-on demonstrations and real-life work experiences in the programs. They guide students on developing a career path, a program of study, and they provide opportunities in gaining skills and abilities needed to be successful in those careers through the activities that they organize. Students also have the opportunity to hold leadership positions at the local, state, and national levels, and they participate in competitions, leadership development, and networking with other students, as well as business and industry partners. There's a lot of evidence that supports that the inclusion of CTSOs as part of a robust career and technical education program, that they are effective and sort of a multiplier of those programs. So in general, students that concentrate, that is, that have 2 or more high school credits in a career and technical education pathway, graduate at significantly higher rates than students that do not. And CTSOs, participation in CTSOs just adds on to that data that we have that demonstrates that concentrating in CTS or CTE is good for students. So students who concentrate in CTE and also participate in one of these CTSOs have higher levels of both academic and career and technical engagement and motivation. There's plenty of evidence that demonstrates that these students become civic leaders through their participation in CTSOs. It also, participating in CTSOs really helps students' motivation and aspirations. It provides them a support structure that allows them to see themselves as successful. And also, the students that do participate in CTSOs, on average, have higher grade point averages and are more likely to be enrolled in college or post-secondary training than students that are not participating in CTSOs. So CTSOs are good for students. The key with CTSOs is that they are intercurricular. That is, they are not a separate after-school club. Often that's kind of how they're seen. It's not like Interact or NHS or any of these other academic clubs that many high schools have. CTSOs are embedded in the career and technical education pathway, and they're aligned to state and national academic standards, industry expectations, and cultural values. So CTSOs are a continuation of classroom learning in an out-of-classroom setting. They allow students to apply classroom learning in real-world situations and grow their skill set, their knowledge base, and communications abilities. There are 3 essential elements of all the CTSOs that we have in Alaska. And the first of these is leadership. Every CTSO has an expectation that students participating in it will step up and take a role in providing leadership both for their program of study and within their chapter. It allows them to practice and grow their soft skills, which really leads to much better persistence in the field that they've chosen. A second component of all CTSOs is service. This is the CTSO giving back to the community. So in this role, CTSOs will perform community service activities, food drives, those sorts of things. And then the third and final component, which is one that usually gets the most coverage, is competition. Every CTSO in the state has a state competition where students compete against each other in set categories to determine how well they have learned the material of a particular pathway. And then the students that are successful at the state competition have the opportunity to go on and compete nationally. And this really mimics real world scenarios where you know, whether or not we see it, there's an element of competition in every job that we're doing. And so by giving students the ability to engage in competition and measure themselves against others, it mimics how they're going to be assessed when they go out into the real world and look for a job. CTSOs do operate at all secondary and post-secondary levels from middle school through post-secondary studies, but in the state of Alaska, our CTSOs are primarily occurring at the high school level. There are some CTSOs that have post-secondary chapters, but there aren't a lot of them. So there are 6 CTSOs that are currently active in Alaska. There's FFA, which used to be called Future Farmers of America, but they changed that name to just FFA recently. There's HOSA, which is Healthcare Professionals, Skills USA, Educators Rising, FCCLA, and BPA. You'll also notice here that there's a 7th one indicated DECA. That one, unfortunately, has kind of fallen by the wayside since COVID. So just to give you an overview of the various different CTSOs, BPA is the Business Professionals of America. It again suffered under COVID when the longtime state advisor retired and is just starting back up. And BPA is designed to help students pursue careers in not just business, but finance, management, design, marketing, some bits of IT. So it's basically focused around helping students prepare for managerial roles in business. Currently, there are chapters in the Matsu and Delta Greeley, but they're actively working to expand that out into other districts. HOSA is the Healthcare Professionals organization. They have a very robust membership, possibly the largest CTSO in the state. As you can imagine, there are lots of opportunities in healthcare fields in our state and lots of demand. HOSA's core values are to learn, lead, serve, and innovate. And they really take their role as a pipeline for future health professionals seriously. And it's important to note that with HOSA, it's not just focused on future doctors and nurses, but students who are interested in any aspect of healthcare as a profession, be that a phlebotomist, a rad tech, medical transcriptionist, to every, all the way up to a neurosurgeon. So it's very inclusive and it's very much focused on healthcare as an entity, not just on primary care or doctors and nurses. Skills USA is one of the largest CTSOs in the nation. And it is a partnership of students, teachers, and industry working to ensure that we have a skilled workforce. It empowers members to become working class workers and leaders and responsible American citizens. Skills USA's tent is very broad. They're traditionally thought of as as representing a lot of the more traditional vocational skills like carpentry, welding, plumbing, but there's also tracks within Skills USA for culinary, law enforcement, healthcare. So there's overlap between Skills USA and virtually every other CTSO. There are something like I want to say 52 different career or different tracks under Skills USA's umbrella. So they have the potential to be quite large. But they are currently, Skills USA is currently focused pretty much in Anchorage, Matsu, and Fairbanks. Educators Rising is a CTSO, as the name implies, focused specifically on developing future educators, both early childhood education and K-12 education. So their goal is to foster excellence within the state by supporting middle school through collegiate level students on their path to becoming educators. One of the key ways that they do this is that Educators Rising actually has a pathway that's been articulated with post-secondary for post-secondary credit at UAF. And so students in high school can get collegiate credit that allows them to transition into getting an associate's or a bachelor's in education more easily and with less cost. Educators Rising is probably the best CTSO we have at pushing out into rural areas. This is a map of communities that are represented with Educators Rising chapters, and you can see that there are communities from all over the state. Just because of our large geographic distribution and the challenges of travel, a lot of material costs, those sorts of things, it's sometimes very difficult to have career and technical education programs, let alone career and technical student organizations out in rural areas. But obviously, we have a huge educational need across the state, but especially so in rural areas. And it's very gratifying that Educators Rising has been able to sort of crack the nut on how to expand out into rural areas and really make sure that rural students are able to engage with their activities and their CTSO on an equitable level. Our fifth existing CTSO is FCCLA, and that stands for Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America. FCCLA in Alaska is primarily focused on culinary, and it's not very pervasive across the state. There are chapters in Anchorage and I believe in Kenai and Kodiak. FCCLA in culinary is one of those CTSOs that has overlap with Skills USA. But one of the reasons that the instructors that are the state advisors for FCCLA wish to continue with it is that being a separate CTSO provides greater opportunity for students to engage in competition. And a lot of students that engage in CTSO competitions will tell you that it is the highlight, if not of their year, potentially of their entire high school career. It's really, I think, an amazing opportunity for students to interact with each other and meet other students with like-minded interests. I had the opportunity to go with our chapter of Skills USA to the national competition in Atlanta this past year, and frankly, I was blown away. I did not really understand what a big deal the competition was and how much the students looked forward to it and enjoyed it and what they got out of it. So it is truly, I think, a transformative experience for students to be able to engage in these competitions and to get the opportunity to go to nationals and meet other students from around the country. The sixth CTSO that we have in the state, and certainly not the least, is FFA. And FFA is primarily focused on agricultural education, although they have the ability to push out also into other things like diesel mechanics and business. It's focused around a comprehensive model of agricultural education. Oops, I don't know why I put that. Agricultural education, supervised externships, and then integrating with the classroom instruction. FFA is incredibly successful in Alaska. Their number of chapters are growing. I don't know why it keeps on doing that, sorry. The number of chapters are growing constantly. I believe that they're up to 18 chapters spread all the way from Delta Greeley down through Southeast. And especially with the advent of concerns about food security in Alaska, there's a lot of interest from districts around the state in agriculture and food production. So the contacts for our CTSOs are listed here. For BPA, Anne and Teresa are classroom teachers. And so they're taking this on as an extra duty. Educators Rising, Florence is a dedicated individual who only does coordination for Educators Rising. FCCLA, Paulette and Melinda also are classroom teachers. They're culinary teachers in Anchorage. FFA Taylor actually is housed in the Division of Agriculture out in Palmer, but she kind of operates autonomously, and she is solely responsible. Her only responsibility is supporting FFA. HOSA is run by Shawnee and Andrea. Andrea is a retired nurse, and Shawnee is a nursing instructor in Matsu. And then Skills USA is being run by Keith Hodson, who works in the Career and Technical Education Department at Anchorage. And then here's my contact information if you have any follow-up questions. So are there any questions at this point?
Thank you so much, Bjorn. I don't see any questions in the chat box. There is one if you have access to the box, to the chat box. Otherwise, I can read it.
Is there an age cap? No, not really. As I mentioned, CTSOs are focused from middle school up through post-secondary study. To the best of my knowledge, I don't know that any of our CTSOs in Alaska really are operating at the middle school level, but that's not to say that they couldn't. And like I mentioned, there are some post-secondary chapters that are operating within the university system, but there aren't many. So potentially, you know, there's no age cap on post-secondary education, right? So in terms of an older range of students, no, there's no age cap. The competitions are divided out by category. So there's middle school, high school, and post-secondary. So you're not going to have post-secondary people competing against middle schoolers.
And the national competition is for all those groups at the same time?
No, so each CTSO has a different state conference. And if people are interested in knowing when those are, I actually have that information available. But the way that it works is that usually there's a chapter competition to see who they want to send to state. Students will compete in the state competition, and then the students that place first in their competition at the state competition have the opportunity to go to the national competition. And don't fall into the trap of thinking, oh, you know, like we're Alaska, we're a small state, we're not going to be able to compete at the national level. There are plenty of examples of students from Alaska going to nationals and absolutely wreaking havoc, taking no prisoners, and, you know, I believe Educators Rising had 16 students place either first, second, or third place at national competitions last year.
Thank you.
So, Ricky. Yeah, so it looks like you chaperoned a group of students going to the state competition. And you know, even if you have a very young chapter, and even if your students are like, oh, I don't think I have any chance of winning, it's not, the competitions and the state conferences are not necessarily about winning, although students do like to win. There's a lot of value to be had in making contacts with your peers from across the state, and just engaging in that level of competition really boosts a student's thinking about their chosen career path. So, even if your students think, well, why should I go if I don't think I can win? There's a lot of value in attending just to attend, and to measure yourself and to see, what are other students doing, and to get ideas and be inspired. Any other questions? All right, well, my email is in the chat and also available from Dominica. If you have any questions about CTSOs, or you want to know further who to get in contact to about starting up a chapter, feel free to give me a shout.
Thank you so much, Bjorn. I appreciate you joining us today and sharing about CTSOs.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Have a great day.